Spoken with Daniel Jones many times from the Haven of Rest in Battle Creek. Today we speak to him in his new position as the Executive Director of the Haven of Rest. And so we invited him to come back and talk to us about a little restructuring that's gone on at the Haven. Good morning, Daniel. I guess I should put your mic on. Good morning, Daniel.
There we go.
There we
the
are.
mic is on. Good morning. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming back today. So, Elaine retired and a little restructuring, and man, it's all new almost.
Well, some things are new and some things don't change.
Yeah.
You know, we've worked in the community so long now as a Christ-centered ministry. That will not change in any way, shape, or form. That is our strength, and that is our base. That is our foundation. We will never take that out of our ministry. And there's even some instances where foundations or groups have offered us money if we took down the Bibles, if we took down the crosses and things like that, and that will not happen. I told my staff yesterday, literally, over my dead body, will we ever stray away from that base of Christ-centered ministry? That's not going to change.
That's interesting because the notion is perhaps that if you did that, then that might be a hurdle that some people don't want to clear, that would be out of the way. What's the thinking with that?
Well, it's if you have access to secular dollars, I guess. People, maybe tax dollars if you think about it.
I see.
They would give you money, but you can't have this kind of a faith-based approach because it favors one religion over another. Our Christian faith base is not going to change for any amount of money, period.
All right. So the restructuring that you came up with, how does that affect where the rubber meets the road, as they say? Well,
our board came up with a restructuring where instead of one executive having 12 different ministries reporting to them, which can be overwhelming. I give Elaine all the credit in the world. She did amazing work. We've got an executive team, really, and that supports me in my role. We've got, for the first time ever, a human resource component here. We've got an HR department. Even though it's part-time, Pastor Ricky Perry fills that role in addition to his pastoral duties there at the Haven. So we've got an HR department. That's an evolution and a change to the positive. Our controller, Robert, he does a great job. And, man, that's where the rubber meets the road, where the money. He's still in that function. No changes there, which is great. He's also taken on a few responsibilities with operational things like the maintenance of the facilities as well as the kitchen, which is an operation. I mean, feeding people 65,000 meals a year, that's an operational job.
No kidding.
So he gets to oversee that. And finally, the social work component. The third person on my executive team, Becky Davis, who hails from our Women's Life Recovery Program, very esteemed and a colleague that does extremely well in the therapy social work department. So she's going to take over and look over ministries that have any component of social work and case management to them. That's not my strength, and I know that, and so I need someone there that complements what I need there.
Absolutely. What's the overall picture these days? I presume that as you evaluated how things would shake out, you're looking at the climate and the funding and all of these things.
Yeah, there's certainly aspects to it, of funding, of management, of general oversight. It breaks down to the real simple things, though, Richard. That's really helping people, and that is truly our call and our mission. You don't go into the ministry to make tons of money.
Yep.
I think there's a lot to be done to build things that we do well in the community to make them excellent. And if we don't do them well, then we're probably going to stop doing them. But if we do them well, we can make them excellent. I was reminded literally the day before this transition started, there was a lady who was released from jail across the street, and you are released from jail exactly the way you went in. So she had no shoes on her feet and needed to go across the street. And I can't think of a better way for God to remind me of the calling in my ministry there. As I walked past her, and she was seated at our picnic table, and she just asked, "Please, can you get me some shoes?" And so I dropped everything I had, literally, and went to Charitable Union for a couple of pairs of shoes. She told me what size. Thanks to Charitable Union, they gave me 2 pairs. Turns out that was not the right size. But, thanks, Charitable Union, you guys do great. So I went downstairs into the Inasmuch house and found some right-size shoes. And that reminds us that, God can put a planet orbiting a star into its orbit. He can do amazing, great things. It takes us as acting as his hands to put shoes on someone's feet, to give a homeless child a meal, to really address a broken individual's life through substance abuse and through treatment and things like that. That's what we're called to do. It breaks down that simple, Richard. It really does.
Right, and as you evaluate that and evaluate what the demand is and how you get those shoes and put them on those feet, you have to think about, I presume, how you're going to get that done and how you feeling about that today. I mean, the demands are there. A year ago, we were talking about potential funding concerns and things. How do you feel today?
That's life in the nonprofit industry.
Yeah.
I mean, that is funding concerns are every day. We have funding concerns about our payroll tomorrow, and that's after a great roof sit last month. So in a ministry like this that does cost us literally about $1.9 million a year to run all of these ministries 24/7, there's funding concerns every day. And how does it all break down?
Completely go away,
it doesn't go away. Management of that, though, is something that I think I have a strength in. And so my vision is to create a very financially strong haven of rest that continues to do those things we do well, excellently. We'll build on that. We'll continue to be there for feeding, for sheltering, and clothing people in the name of Christ, like we always have.
You're the picture gets examined when things like this happen, changes take place, and everything gets considered. And you've been looking at that financial picture that we've been talking about.
Yeah, as I say, that's my strength. And I've literally sat in a meeting with the faith-based community, and someone waved their hand kind of over the budget that I was sharing from the Haven of Rest. Just wave their hand over the budget and say, in the kingdom of God, that's irrelevant.
Wow.
And I understand the faith-based approach to saying, if God orders something, he will pay for it. No question. The money will show up at your door unexpectedly. There will be a bequest from someone's estate. Somebody will donate their vehicle, their house, or whatever. But you show me a church that doesn't build a budget and try and stick to it, and I'll eat my hat. Honestly, you have to be good stewards of what you're given. And that is a focus at the Haven that I think we can do excellently. We do it very well right now with the controller, with Robert and his function, and myself. I think we can do it excellently. And as I'm saying, I'm sharing this budget of the Haven of Rest individual ministries with the faith-based community. And there are three glaring holes in that budget. And they're both in my men's and women's substance abuse treatment programs and, strangely enough, in the food ministry, feeding 65,000 meals a year. Right? There's expenses in that. There are wonderful things. And literally, I'm not here on the air begging for money. We just did that with Roof Sit, right, for 2 days.
Right.
But there are three glaring holes in that budget. And cumulatively, those holes put $260,000 worth of deficit to the Haven's bottom line. And there are other ministries that are profitable, profitable, air quotes.
Yes, right.
That do offset those losses. But those are three ministries that could use support. And I'm surprised in a community built on food and built on the production of food and meals that we have such a deficit in our food budget of $100,000 just to feed those meals. And that's staff time, cost of the food itself, of utilities, of feeding, serving, cleaning up after. It piques my curiosity that a community like this that's built on food would have that kind of deficit.
Right. I hear the food bank. In fact, they were here earlier in the week talking about their buying power.
Yep.
$1 is 6 meals or something. And it's, these numbers that just make your head spin. Does Haven have that ability to stretch $1?
We sure do. And we work with our food bank locally. They are the best partners we could hope for in this kind of thing. So we're extensively working with them. I think, between the Haven, as I mentioned, Charitable Union, and the food bank, and even Safe Place, those are the most impactful nonprofits in this community, and folks want to support those, please do. But we work with food bank very close, and we stretch that $1. If you look at it, cost per meal for us, prepared and served and everything else, is under $2 a meal. And it's just amazing the work we do in that ministry. 65,000 meals. You've seen the size of the kitchen. It's not much bigger than this studio. So to produce that many meals out of one place, but we stretch as far as we can. And
Right, and that's especially helpful when there's 65,000 meals. Yeah. So, when you're in a position that you've been in, you contribute, of course, to the overall mission. But when you become the director, you become sort of the person with the vision, right? So how do you feel about that right now, and what do you see?
I'm not leaving my fundraising responsibilities behind. This is the new normal, right? The new paradigm is you take your 2 jobs and combine them into one. So effectively, I eliminated my job, my old job. I eliminated the fund development role. So I still have it in my role as executive director. Yeah. I get some support from that executive team I mentioned, and we're just going to go forward. But yes, contributing to the vision. And I see my vision as, number one, remaining Christ-centered as a mission in Battle Creek, and that does not change. That will not change even if I'm not there. Beyond that, doing things excellently to the best of our ability and maintaining our financial base as strong as we can make it. And that's going to take help from supporters in the community. I think in my new role here, speaking with some of our supporters the last week, I've seen a lot of people saying, hey, how can we help? And that's the question to ask. Call us and say, how can we help? Mm-hmm. There are volunteer roles that need to be filled. There are donations to be made. There's estate planning to be done if that's, of somebody's a mind. So, yeah, I think we can do things excellently, and we're going to be stronger than we ever have been before down at the Haven.
Mm-hmm. You talked about bequests. That's not something that, the average person drives around, walks around, sits around thinking about. But these things happen. People give thought to this and say, I want to make a lasting impact to the Haven, for example.
Yep.
So that happens pretty regularly, does it?
Maybe once a year, maybe twice a year. You would think it'd be all the time because we're a 65 or 61-year-old ministry here in town, and it doesn't. It's very rare. I would love to see it more. And you and I have spoken before. We don't have this big multi-million-dollar endowment.
Yep.
There's biblical precedent for having 7 years of stored up for 7 years of lean, but we don't do that. And honestly, if we had $14 million sitting in an endowment and there was still need in this community, then shame on us. So I think there's a balance to be struck there between having some reserves, and we will build on that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, anything that we're given, we are going to turn around and put towards ministry. So, yeah, if people want to think about that as an estate planning thing, it'll impact many, many years of giving, of actual ministry in this community. It'll make an impact. I'm planning on it.
Right, yeah. All right. Well, we wanted to make sure, and we've talked a lot over the last several weeks, but we wanted to make sure we gave you a chance to come back in your new role and your new old role.
I'm not wearing out my welcome, I hope. I hope people in the community are, oh, geez, it's that guy again from the Haven of Rest. He's going to ask for money. Yep, shameless as ever. I'm still doing it.
Well, we wanted to give you a chance in your new role to come back and talk about how things will be going forward, and we're glad you did.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, congratulations, and we'll look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Richard.
All right. Daniel Jones with the Haven of Rest, 95.3 WBCK.